Hello everyone. Today I'm going to revisit the 410 LOTO lock by Masterlock. Normally what I do is I pick these in my hand and I have this cord and they'll all be on one side. And as I pick them, I put it on the other side. Pick it, put it on the other side, and I'll kind of randomize the order as I put them, move them from one side to the other. Right now I only have 4 locks. I used to have more. Kind of given some away, made some of the keychain LOTOs out of them as I sent some stuff out. But normally what I'd do is sit with that on the couch, watch a movie, and pick at these. So first thing is I use thin picks. So I was using the SS Dev kit from Sparrows, which had 3 different hooks, and they had a flat hook that would get under the last pin or one of the back pins if they were too low and I couldn't get under them with the other hooks, and it'd get them started. The medium hook, which is kind of like this one here, it's just kind of a medium type hook, and then they had a really steep one in that Dev set, and I liked it a lot. I still have them. I still like them, but they're 0.015. They fit between the warding great, but they're a little flimsy. Then I got this pick. This is a 0.5 millimeter, so 0.019, and they're just enough sturdier that they don't give you that wobble. They still give you some good feedback and everything. So I really started to like this thickness of a pick in certain situations, of course. So I ordered a set of the multi-picks in 0.5 millimeter. So starting with the LOTO here, now that we got our pick choice made, I'll put it all the way in and I'm on that first pin, and I don't want to touch that first pin. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of pull back just a little bit. So I'm off that first pin. I've got room to get to that first pin because that first pin always gives me troubles. So I'm just gonna go down through here and I'm gonna try to find pins that are sticking a little bit. I'm gonna try to get into that false set. A little bit of a false set. Should be a little bit deeper. One of the nice things is this is a dead core. So what that means is, like I just dropped my pick, if I'm careful and I don't rattle the lock around a lot, I didn't lose anything. Because if you're used to picking an 1100, the 1100 has a spring that'll center it back up. And it'll take away everything that you worked for. So there I just went into a false set just by touching pin number 2. Because everything else that I had touched was still set. That's one of the positives about a dead core. The negative is, if you think you overset something, you try to let up pressure, the pins won't necessarily drop. So what I do is I'll put the hook in kind of toward the middle of the lock, and I'll give just a little bit of pressure to give myself some counter rotation to let any pins that are overset, it'll let them drop. So my tension here is I'm just holding, I'm not pressing at all. I'm just holding it against that. I'm holding this edge of the tension wrench against that wall just so it doesn't fall. That's all I'm doing. And if I start to get counter rotation, I'll have to give a little bit more pressure just so it doesn't slip and move and everything. But it's a really light pressure on the tension wrench. And with this, it's not much more than just having 2 fingers. This one's just kind of guiding the pick to make sure it's at the angle that I need it to be. So I'm lightly holding the pick. And there I got counter rotation, but I don't want to give it everything I can because I'm not on the tip. So sometimes you'll see me bouncing. I'm not pressing on anything. I'm trying to make sure that the tip of my pick is on the tip of that pin, so I get a good positive click like that. Now I know I lost my false set, but I'll get it back here in just a second as I go through some of these other pins. Yeah. Let's see, touch number 1. So number 1, it tends to be a harder for me because it's right behind this tension wrench. and it's right on the edge of the lock, so it doesn't get a whole lot of good leverage when I'm picking there. So let me go through here and just touching lightly, trying to find the tip of the pin. And once I find a pin that has a little force against it, I'll check it. So now that one has force against it, but it's not giving me any feedback. So that pin is set. There's no movement on it. It's set. Now this one, I can see the tension wrench is moving, and I got lucky there. I slipped off of it, but I think I still got the set on it because it just barely went over. And it's a balancing act because you want it to, just as it clears it and snaps over, you want to be able to feel pressure on that wrench to get it over. I have actually on these 410s been putting so light pressure and going through the pins that I actually had it set over, and I just wasn't even pressing hard enough because of the way I was holding it in my hand and everything. And then after touching some pins, I pressed a little bit and I'm like, oh, I got it open. And so, you actually have to check sometimes to make sure that you didn't get it set. Let me see if get on pin 1. Pin 1 just gave me a little click, but I'm still going to get counter rotation out of it. Make sure I'm not picking my tension wrench because I do that a lot. And there we go. So I just had a light touch on pin 3 or 4. To be honest, I couldn't tell you which one it was. And then it comes open. So it's really, really light touches with the tension wrench. It's just kind of making sure that the tip of your pick is on the tip of the pin. If it's a little bit back, the pin can slide down and you may get a partial set. You can't push it all the way through, and then it gets hung up halfway. That happens to me a lot. You want to make sure. So when I was in there bouncing on those pins, when I was bouncing on the pins, I'm actually seeing if I'm actually trying to feel if the pick is sliding off the back of the pin or if I'm dead center on it. So it's that bouncing motion is just me trying to make sure that if I move the pin, am I going to slide off the back, or am I going to, generally that's what I do as I slide off the back. I don't slide off the front so much. Usually I'm on this back edge of the pick, so I got to come back. I like to work from the back of the lock to find that pin because I can use the hook to ride up on there. So those are my tricks. They can seem really crunchy. With this technique, it doesn't feel near as crunchy to me. When I was doing a lot of hard pressure and really pushing on them, it was crunchy, but I've learned to lighten up quite a bit. On the American locks, I tend to do a little bit more pressure. I can use a thicker pick, and I can actually snap, even when I have spools, I can hold pressure on it and push that spool, and it'll snap right over out of that spool, and I can keep moving. Now there's some I have to lighten up a little bit, but a lot of 1100s I got in a bad habit because I could use heavy pressure and still get through the lock. And then there's others that I have to use light tension on, and with that spring it was hard to get. Now with this lock and a couple other locks, I've learned to lighten up my tension. Even with the 1100, I've learned that I can lighten up my tension and I feel out that spring a little bit. These are all learned skills. The first week or whatever, I couldn't pick a 410 LOTO. I put them away for a while. I came back to them after picking more difficult locks, and they get easier. But if I haven't picked one of these in a while, they're still tricky. I still have to learn that feel again. I have to get in there because, like I said, I can, with this pick, wedge against the pin and the warding and get stuck. So I have to learn that path down through there because I'm not holding it in straight. It's not straight up and down. The pick is slightly at an angle, and trying to find it and work my way down through there. So it just take your time, lighten up your pressure. You're going to drop the tension wrench. It gets frustrating, but eventually you'll find that balance and you'll learn to balance the tension wrench. I still drop the tension wrench because, whatever at the time. Sometimes I actually get in there and trying to pick pin 1 and I pick the tensioner out of there. But with this dead core, usually I can put it back in and I don't lose anything. So that's a good thing about it. Hope that was helpful to some of you, and this is longer than I expected, but thanks for hanging in there, guys. Have a great one.